Hello and welcome back to StudentBlue.com.
In our previous lecture, we learned about overriding. Okay, so in this lecture, we're going to learn about overloading. So overloading is also one of the important features of Java programming language. So what is overloading? So overloading is the ability to define a behavior that is specific to a subclass type, which means a subclass can implement a parent class method based on its requirement. So just like the overriding, right? Overloading would have the same method name, and you can have parent class with the method name and the child class with the same method name. Overloading allows different methods to have the same name but different signatures, where signature can differ by number of input parameters or type of input parameters or both. Basically, it's similar to overriding, but with overloading, you can have different parameters, right? In overriding, you can have the same method name, but your parameters should be the same. Overloading allows you to have different parameters, right? It even allows you to have different type of input parameters. Overloading is normally done during inheritance, where the parent class and subclass may have the same method name, but with different parameters or input type, and needs to be overloaded based on the requirement. So your parent class could have method A, right? And your child class could have method A with different parameters. Let's say it requires two int parameters, integer A, integer B. Now your child class C could have three parameters, integer A, integer B, integer C. Right? So now when you create an object, when you call integer C, you can actually call a method with three parameters, right? So based on the requirement, you can actually call any method, right? Since the method is the name is same, and you have different parameters, you can call whatever the method name with different parameters you want. The main advantage of overloading is that you don't have to create multiple methods for the same functionality if the functionality requires different parameters or input types. What that basically means is, let's say you have add method, right? An add method, you can actually add two integers, you can add two double values, you can add two floating values, and so on, right? So in that case, right, if you start creating methods for each different data type, you're gonna have like 100 methods, right? And that's very confusing for other people, right? For the other programmers, because they don't know which methods to use, right? So let's say you create a method name for each integer. Let's say, okay, this is an int add, this is a double add, this is a floating add, and so on, right? So if you have n number of names, your code is going to be very, very long, and also your the other people would be confused which method to use for their functionality. In that case, overloading helps a lot because you can use the same method name but have different parameters or different input types. I'll give you an example in here. So I've got this addition class in here, and I've got this add return type int, right? This add method here, instance method, has a return type int. Okay, it returns integer. So here it requires two parameters, x and y, okay, which is both integers, and it returns the addition x plus y. Now I have another method here, an instance method with the same method name, add. However, you can see here I've got x, y, g. Okay, it requires three parameters, and this actually it's also integer return type method, instance method. So it's going to return whatever the sum of x plus y and g. So now I've got another method here with different return type, double, right? And it's basically adds to double numbers. So I've got double x and double y. So it returns the addition of two double data type numbers. So now if I have this main method here, and if I create addition, a equal new addition, I create an object from this class in here. If I print a.add, I just put integer in here. So if I do that, it's actually going to call this one here. It knows that, okay, you've got this integer here, so I'm actually going to call this one, right? And now if I call a.add with three parameters, it's actually going to call, okay, this one here we only have two parameters, so I'm going to use this one with three parameters. It's going to use this a.add with this. It's going to overload this method here. You're going to call this one here, and let's say you have decimal values, right, or double values. Then it's going to actually call this one. So here, basically, you are overloading this add method, right? So if you have this first add method, you overload with this one here, and you overload with this one here. So when I run this, you're going to get 24 plus 24, 48. And you add 324, you're going to get 72, and you're going to add 12.24, 12.24, you're going to get 24.48. So with the overloading, I was able to call different add method based on my requirement or based on my scenario. So that is basically overloading, right? Don't get confused with overriding and overloading, right? Overriding would have the same method name, but it has to have the same parameter, If you don't have any parameter, you're going to override the same method in child class with the same parameter. However, with overloading, you can have different parameters and also different return type, as you can see here, right? So you have a lot of flexibility with the overloading. So now let's go back into our IntelliJ here, and I'm actually going to create another package, and I'm going to call it overloading. All right, and here I'm actually going to create a class. I'm going to call it addition, and in here I'm actually going to call first addition of two integers. So I'm going to say public void. I'm actually, this returns the integer. I'm going to do int add int, let's say a int b. Basically it's returning a plus b. So now let's say addition of three integers. I'm actually going to copy this to save some time here. And in here, let's say int c. So I'm going to say c. Right. So now I'm going to create another addition of double values. Paste that here again. So in here, I'm actually going to do double and double here. Also, I'm going to return double. So here I got this add method. Method name is same, but the parameters are different. So basically you create this method, you overload with this one, and you overload with that one, right? So now if I create a main method here, I create a object, okay, a dot, I'm going to do system.out.println because you're returning it, right? You're saving it. You're returning means you're actually returning the value, but you're not printing it out, right? So I need to print it out. So I'm actually going to system.out.println, and I'm going to add, and I'm going to say 24, 24, and system.out.println again, a.add 24, 24, 24. I mean, you can use other numbers here as well. And I'm just going to copy this to save some time here. And here I'm actually going to do 44, let's say 22.22, and alright. So now if I run this, first it's going to say 48, then it's going to say 72, and it says 46.66, right? So here I'm calling the same method name add, and here I'm calling this method name here. Actually, you're overloading this add method. So that is pretty much what overloading means, right? So normally when you actually call some method, right, you're actually overloading the method here. So let's say that if I do here, I'm going to give you an example, right? So for instance, I'm going to do string dot. So you can see here, right, the dot value. As you can see here, this value of method of the string class has different parameters, right? So all this like value of methods are being overloaded, right? There's like so many values in here with different parameters. As char, this is object, boolean, double, split, so on. So that is pretty much what overloading in Java is. Okay, overriding and overloading are very, very commonly used in Java. It's a very important concept you need to understand. All right, so that's it for this lecture. I will see you guys in our next lecture.